Hello everyone, my name is Seth, and today I'm going to give you my review of Wish. Wish came out in November of 2023, and it was kind of supposed to be Disney's 100-year celebration movie. And that's definitely a tall task to live up to, so I definitely would not have faulted them at all if they didn't live up to all of that Disney history. Really, I was just looking for some of that just Disney magic, and unfortunately, I don't necessarily think that I found it here. But before I go any farther, go ahead and like this video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. So let's go ahead and start right at the beginning. We start this film with a storybook opening up and with narration, and it did not captivate me at all right from the beginning. I was really hoping we'd have a beginning similar to something like Encanto, where it kind of quickly jumps us right into a song, really tells us about the story and the world we're in, the characters. And the song a few minutes into the movie kind of did that, but it was a little bit redundant having a little bit of the narration at the beginning and the song there at the beginning as well. I kind of feel like they both did the same thing, but the song did it quite a bit better. It was more entertaining, and it just overall did a better job of introducing the audience to the world that we're in. And I would have found a way to kind of start this film right with the song. The story here absolutely has a ton of potential. And for Disney's 100-year celebration movie to be about wishing and hoping, that is a good idea. I mean, it makes sense. Maybe Disney's most popular song is When You Wish Upon a Star. I mean, even the Disney cruise ships, their horns play the first 7 notes of that song. I really feel like they struggled to put an engaging story around this whole idea. This movie is just kind of filled with film cliches, and nothing really surprised me or shocked me. And so it was kind of hard for me to really just get into the film. As a whole, I don't necessarily think that the script was that strong, but it definitely was not strong with the dialogue. I feel like a lot of the dialogue didn't sound natural. It didn't sound like how real people would talk. And I understand we might be in this kind of fantasy kingdom land, whatever, but even then, didn't really feel natural. There were so many lines that just felt awkward and just kind of pulled me out a little bit. There were a few times where I just kind of said to myself, that's a weird way to put that. And of course, here throughout the script, they have references to other Disney films that they've done, whether it be through different lines or through just a couple of different visuals. And mostly that was there just to be just a reference, just for the audience to be like, oh, hey, I know what they're referencing. Unfortunately, a lot of the humor just didn't really work for me. I didn't really find myself laughing at any of the jokes, and none of the jokes were that bad. None of the bits were super annoying or anything like that. It's just, I didn't find them that funny. They were just kind of whatever. And I don't really think the characters in this film are all that strong either. We really only get to know our main character, Asha, but even then, we only get to know her kind of on a surface level. We know that she's persistent. We know that she's hopeful. She lost her father at a young age, but that's just about as deep as we go with it. For her to be the main character, I don't feel like I know her as well as I should. And since they didn't really do a great job of characterization with the main character, that kind of trickles down to all of the other side characters as well. There are a few side characters in this film. Asha has some friends that kind of come in and out of the story, and I couldn't tell you any of their names. None of them made a lasting impact on me. We don't get to know them as characters. We don't get to know them as people. They just kind of had one base personality, and that's it. Just as a whole, it feels kind of bland. There's a point in the film where a certain character is kind of brainwashed, and I didn't really feel anything. And I would have felt something a little bit more if I had known these characters more. I feel like not having great characters really hurts the audience's connection with the film, and it kind of makes the whole film not well-rounded at all. There's even a conflict between a couple of characters that kind of kickstarts the story a little bit more. And the conflict is never really resolved, at least not that we see. It's just the next time we see these two characters together, it's everything's okay. And that's not necessarily great storytelling. I think a good villain would go a long, long way into making this film more enjoyable. But like the other side characters, there's not a lot of depth here to our main villain, King Magnifico. He suffers from a lot of the same issues as everybody else in this film. And I feel like we have his villain turn way too early for how he was presented in this film. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do appreciate how we don't have this whole cliche of the main character overhears the villain's master plan, even though he's really nice, he's actually evil, and you find out through like overhearing it while you're cleaning up something or whatever. Like that's played out. We didn't see that here, but I think what they did here didn't really work. It felt really quick. Like we were introduced to King Magnifico. He seemed nice and kind, and then pretty much in the same scene, we kind of get the villain turn. And it's not even like full-on super evil villain. It's like, oh, he's like maybe a little villainous. Maybe a little bit closer to just an antagonist to Asha instead of a full-on villain. I think they could have gotten the same point across in that scene without making him sound so much like a villain. But I feel like if they were going to do that, they should just have gone all in right from the start and make him an evil king. And his turn from kind of villainous, antagonistic to full-on villain was also as quick as us knowing that, oh yeah, this guy's kind of a villain. I wish it was more gradual and more believable. But like I said, maybe he should have been a pure villain right from the start. Something like that can work. I mean, look at some of the other Disney villains. Like, some of them are just pure evil, and it works. I think something like maybe Scar from The Lion King is something closer to what King Magnifico should have been. Although we do have a lack of interesting characters here, I don't think that translates into the performances. I think the performances were really good. There's two main standouts to me. First is Ariana DeBose. She does a really good job in this film. When Asha is upset, you believe it. When she's hopeful, when she's happy, you absolutely believe it, based solely on her voice. If you were to close your eyes and just listen to her performance, you would pretty much be able to picture what is going on in the scene, kind of what Asha's facial expressions are, and that's the sign of really good voice acting. And the other main standout to me was absolutely Chris Pine. Even though I had my issues with how the character was written, he absolutely was such a fun villain. At times in this film, he's really sinking his teeth into kind of what a mean, nasty, and cruel villain that Magnifico is. You can just hear like the hate and the spite through his voice and his performance. And I absolutely think you can tell he had a good time recording these lines. Chris Pine overall is just such a good performer, and here he puts all of that straight into his voice. And can I just say that Chris Pine does have a really cool voice? He gives us some kind and compassionate tones in his voice from the beginning of the film, but then he also delivers the kind of wild, unhinged, pure villain side of things. I think the songs do a decent job of moving the story along. If you watch my channel for a while, you know that my favorite thing, and I think the best thing that musicals can do, is use the songs to give us more insight into characters, use the songs to move the story along, not just have songs to be there. And they didn't do that here. Everything kind of moved the story along. They tried to give some insights into characters with the songs. But unfortunately, I would say, I don't think the songs are necessarily that good. We don't have any songs like We Don't Talk About Bruno or Let It Go or You've Got a Friend in Me or anything like that here. And I'm not saying everything has to be like a 100% certified Disney hit that people will be singing for 40 years. But these songs aren't really memorable. They're not really catchy. I don't think they have a fun or memorable hook in the chorus. I think if you're having a Disney karaoke night, you're not going to hear anybody pulling these out. I think my biggest complaint with these songs is probably the villain song, the King Magnifico song. Disney has some really, really good villain songs. I mean, you think of like Be Prepared or Poor Unfortunate Souls, something like that. They can capture just the feel of the villain, and they don't do that here. This song kind of feels happy and upbeat, and it doesn't go along with what King Magnifico is singing about and what he's doing in the scene. That can really make for some cognitive dissonance. Like I mentioned, Poor Unfortunate Souls Are Be Prepared. I think the tone of those songs would better fit what's going on in the film at that moment. Kind of like the characters, even though the songs weren't that great, the performances were really good. I think they make great use of both Ariana DeBose and Chris Pine's voices. They definitely use these songs and play to their strengths as singers. They both have really great singing voices, and Ariana DeBose is incredible. She has such a great tone to her voice. And one last thing I want to bring up is the animation style. This almost seems like a mix between the classic, like 2D Disney animation and more of like the 3D Pixar style animation. And while I think that's a good idea, I think that's an interesting idea, I don't necessarily know if it worked. It didn't really stand out as odd to me watching the trailers, but sitting down, seeing the whole film in context, it just didn't really look right for me. Like I said, I think that's a good idea. I appreciate that they tried it, but I think this film probably would have been better served to kind of go back and do like the 2D Disney style of animation. And for some reason, the combination of these two styles kind of made it feel cheaper. I think other than some of the hair on the characters, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of detail in the animation. At least I would say in the background. They did a good job, like I said, with the hair, some of the sparkles, with some of the star stuff, some other things like that. But overall, I don't think there was a ton of detail in the animation here. I really, really wanted to like Wish, but unfortunately, I just found it really disappointing. I didn't expect it to live up to 100 years of Disney storytelling. That's almost an impossible task. But I wanted it to at least be a fun film that I could go back to every once in a while. And honestly, I don't know if or when I'm ever going to go back to this. I don't necessarily know if there's a reason for me. And I think that's pretty unfortunate. I know this review's been pretty negative. I really was hoping it wouldn't end up being negative, but I would say this isn't a complete 100% outright failure. But unfortunately, I just can't give this a positive score. As a whole, I would have to say this is just a below average film. So I think I have to give it a 2 out of 5. But that's it. That's my review of Wish. Have you seen this film? Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. I'd love to have a conversation with you about it. Do you like it more than I did? Are you about on the same page as me? Or did you even like it less than I did? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. We're getting closer and closer to 200 subscribers. So if you want to be there in the first 200, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can follow me on social media pretty much anywhere at CinemaSet, and I'll see you next time.